Welcome to today's explainer. Get ready because we are about to embark on a completely mind-bending historical detective journey. We're going to look at one of the most intriguing vanishing acts in human history, and we'll be exploring a highly unconventional, honestly fascinating theory that attempts to explain exactly what happened to an entire civilization. We'll be relying on a very specific set of translated texts to guide our investigation, piecing together a puzzle that stretches from ancient societies all the way to the very concept of human evolution. Let's dive right in. It's the ultimate question, right? What actually caused this sudden disappearance of the vast majority of the Maya? I mean, we're talking about an incredibly advanced civilization here, absolute masters of astronomy, architecture, mathematics, who seemingly just vanished into thin air. Anthropologists, historians, archaeologists, they have all debated this for decades. Was it famine? Was it rampant warfare? Maybe a catastrophic shift in the climate? The mystery has completely stumped the experts. But the source material we're examining today takes a totally different path. It doesn't look at drought or disease at all. It looks at human energy. Now, what's really interesting about this is the radical claim made by translator Shuffeng. Based on his examination of a collection of ancient records, he basically bypasses all the traditional scientific explanations to offer this wild thesis. The Mayans didn't die out. They didn't scatter into the jungle and collapse under the weight of societal decay. No, according to this author, they achieved a state of collective immortality. That is a massive shift in perspective, moving from an archaeological tragedy to a story of ultimate spiritual success. So, to truly wrap our heads around this claim, we need to clearly define the core subject of our explainer. This theory is derived from what the author calls the Peruvian manuscripts, and specifically a section known as the Ninth Mystery. The Ninth Mystery puts forth the concept that human beings possess the intrinsic ability to consciously increase their own energy, and if they increase it enough, they can achieve a state that is not only immortal, but literally invisible to the rest of the world. It reframes human existence not just as a biological reality of flesh and bone, but as this dynamic journey of vibrational energy. But, how does a civilization actually get to that point? Well, the manuscript doesn't just jump straight to invisibility. It maps out a broad historical progression of how humanity has dealt with energy and conflict over millennia. The author suggests that our entire history of struggle has actually been an evolutionary mechanism, pushing us toward this ultimate state of being. The text breaks this whole process down into 3 distinct eras. The author's roadmap of human progression kicks off in the primitive era. During this time, humans were in a constant state of physical conflict. The text claims this was actually an unconscious way of conquering others to steal their energy, only to eventually be conquered and lose it again. Then we shifted into the democratic era. The invention of democracy didn't end human conflict, it just moved the battleground. It became a mental conflict rather than a purely physical one. And this mental stage, according to the text, was the necessary bridge to prepare us for the modern era, a time of conscious evolution, where we finally stop fighting others for energy and start purposefully growing our own. And that actually brings us to where the author says we are right now. We're entering an era where we can bring this whole evolutionary process into our conscious awareness. The text asserts that we can now purposefully increase our own energy, and a huge sign of this stage is how we view coincidences. Rather than seeing them as random accidents, like, running into an old friend out of the blue or finding that perfect parking spot when you desperately need one, the manuscript suggests that in this heightened state, we begin to experience coincidences as inevitable, deeply connected links in our own evolution. Recognizing these connections actually carries our evolution forward at a much faster pace. Okay, let's dive into this because this is where the text pivots from historical philosophy into something resembling, spiritual physics. The author explains that this conscious evolution isn't just some nice metaphor, it's a literal mechanical process of vibration that physically alters the human body at its most fundamental level. The translation maps this out in 4 distinct steps. Step 1 is our ultimate destiny, to continually increase our energy levels. As we do this, Step 2 triggers an acceleration in the actual vibration of the atoms within our bodies. This leads directly to Step 3. Because those atoms are vibrating at such an incredibly high frequency, the physical body literally becomes lighter. Finally, Step 4 aligns with this physical lightness, resulting in a soul that is increasingly pure and spiritual. So the author draws a really stark contrast between these 2 ways of existing. A lower energy state features slower atomic vibration. It's dense, it's purely physical, and crucially, it's visible to everyone around you. On the flip side, the higher energy state features incredibly fast atomic vibration. It transcends the physical to become purely spiritual. It's drastically lighter, and most importantly for our historical mystery, it becomes completely invisible to those who are still operating in that lower state. This concept of visibility, that is the absolute key that unlocks the whole theory presented in the ninth mystery. The text argues that as human beings continue to increase their vibration, this amazing phenomenon occurs. If an entire group of people reaches this high vibrational state together, they cross what we can call an invisibility threshold. And this is exactly how the text explains the Mayan disappearance. According to the mechanics described here, the Mayans didn't suffer a collapse at all. They hit a vibrational tipping point. The text states that high vibrating groups become suddenly invisible to anyone vibrating at a lower level. So, to the lower level humans left behind, they simply perceive that millions of people vanished into thin air. Talk about an extreme magic trick, right? But the fascinating twist here is the perspective of the Mayans themselves. The text claims the high vibrating group didn't go anywhere. They felt as though they were still right there on Earth, existing in the exact same space, just feeling lighter. They just crossed a barrier. So, what exactly is this barrier we're talking about? Well, the manuscript explains that when humans raise their vibrations to a level where others cannot see them, it signals that they are crossing the ultimate boundary. It's the barrier between this physical life and the other world, the spiritual realm we supposedly come from and return to after death. By raising our energy, the text claims we literally expand the physical world right into the spiritual one. It means bridging life and the afterlife without ever actually having to experience physical death. And this brilliantly illustrates the text's use of a very familiar historical figure, Christ. It frames his miracles not as magic, but as the result of exact vibrational mechanics. The author states that Christ opened up to the energy until he vibrated at such a high frequency and became physically so light that he could literally walk on water. According to this manuscript, he transcended death right here on Earth and was the first to really demonstrate how to expand the physical into the spiritual. The translation makes a super bold assertion based on that example. It claims that Christ's life was simply a demonstration of how to do this. The text insists that if we connect with that exact same energy source, we can head the same way, step by step. The ultimate promise of the ninth mystery is that at some point, everyone will vibrate highly enough that we can simply walk right into heaven while remaining in our current physical form. How wild is that? Okay, so the million-dollar question. How do we actually achieve this? The author doesn't just leave us hanging with ancient mysteries and grand, sweeping theories. The text provides practical advice on how to trigger this evolutionary leap right now. And it all comes down to what we focus our perception on in our everyday lives. The translation lays out a surprisingly clear path forward. It all starts with step 1, seeing and appreciating beauty. The author states that the more beauty we can see, the more we evolve. As we evolve, our perception increases. That increased perception directly causes our atomic structure to vibrate at a higher frequency. According to the text, taking time to literally stop and smell the roses actually speeds up your atomic structure. And finally, that increased vibration will eventually open our eyes to a heaven that is already right here before us. We just vibrate too slowly to see it yet. Recognizing beauty is the mechanical trigger for human evolution. And that brings us to the translator's final message, dated June 2006. Shufeng hopes this information strengthens the will to achieve this immortal state, but he leaves us with a deeply personal challenge. This text suggests that heaven isn't somewhere you go after you die, it's a frequency you tune into while you live. If the path to evolving, vibrating higher, and perhaps even uncovering the secrets of the Mayans lies entirely within your own perception, the question remains: how will you rely on yourself to explore and find your own way?